Hi everyone, welcome to our recorded webinar on the Spring 2026 grant cycle. I'm Megan Duddle, the Grants Director for Wisconsin Humanities, and I hope walking through the eligibility requirements, budget components, and terminology today help you get started on applying. It's important to know that this grant cycle is not for general operating support, but for describing a public humanities program or event that is typically open and accessible to the public. Some format ideas are here on this slide. It could include an exhibition, a performance, a story circle, a book discussion club, a public school program, a festival, a podcast, oral history project. Creativity is definitely encouraged. While all eligible proposals are welcome, we have established the following two priorities for this grant round. The first is titled Wisconsin and America at 250. We are approaching the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence and encourage people of all backgrounds and ages to see their communities and view their own histories as relevant to the semi-quincentennial commemoration. Projects should contribute to a broader awareness of the complexity of our state's and nation's history and spark public conversations that encourage all Wisconsinites to engage in the civic life of their communities. Strong applications will address one or more of the following themes, which were developed by the American Association of State and Local History. We have a link to these themes and descriptions that really go deeper into the ideas behind them and potential project ideas at our website. So I encourage you to click on that American Association of State and Local History. It's called the Field Guide to learn more about these themes. If your project does connect to one or more of these themes, you can describe how in your application's project description. So the second priority is titled Converse and Connect, and these projects will really focus on having a strong conversational or discussion component to your project. So Converse and Connect projects will facilitate fruitful conversation around a particular cultural tradition, history, public policy, community challenge or opportunity, or other identified topic of community and civic interest. These projects will also bring the public together, either face-to-face or virtually, and they'll provide a concrete strategy to gather people with varying backgrounds, experiences, and beliefs, if applicable. Here are some important dates regarding the Spring 2026 cycle. The deadline is March 16th, 2026 at 5 p.m. That's when you'll need to hit submit inside the grant portal called Foundant. There's a link to that grant portal at our website. Award notification will be around April 15th, 2026. The award amount is up to $4,000. Who is this grant for? It's for nonprofit organizations based in Wisconsin. But something new this round is that it currently excludes all Universities of Wisconsin institutions due to the funding source. I am available for some consultations. If you do have further questions about this cycle and your application, feel free to shoot me an email and we can set that up. If you are an arts-focused nonprofit applying with an arts-focused project, Wisconsin Humanities will fund projects that clearly engage audiences with the historical or cultural context of the art in question, but we wouldn't fund projects that are focused on viewing or experiencing a work of art without there being that reflection and discussion around the meaning of the art or the context of that art. So for example, we are not able to fund classes that only teach the technique of weaving or figure drawing. Likewise, we are not able to fund writing workshops that teach the mechanics of writing. There's also social service and humanities considerations. If you are a direct social service agency, our funds cannot support direct social services like transitional housing, hygiene pantries, mental health, or therapy. Or sometimes we get inquiries about funding GED educational classes. But those, while important services, are not we're not able to fund. We can fund policy conversations or other formats to increase public understanding of issues. For example, aging issues in a rural county, or what food deserts mean for communities. This is a concise list of eligibility requirements that you want to definitely read through and check off in your head. We do not fund for-profit organizations or individuals. If you are either of those, you do need to find a fiscal sponsor who is an eligible nonprofit with a Wisconsin EIN tax number. That fiscal sponsor also has to have a programmatic connection to the project. So again, we do fund nonprofit organizations who are based in Wisconsin and with that Wisconsin EIN tax number. We don't fund social service or mental health services projects primarily for college or university campus audiences. We do not fund book production or archival projects. We also do not fund building construction or renovation projects or projects whose main purpose is advocacy. And if you need more information and detail about what advocacy means, that is also at our website. And the last point I want to make is that this specific Spring 2026 round excludes all Universities of Wisconsin institutions due to the funding source. One of the first eligibility items you should check on in the beginning of the process is to check and see if your nonprofit has an existing UEI number. UEI stands for Unique Entity Identification Number. It's received and requested through sam.gov, so that we have a link at our website of where to go to request this number. But you do need this number to receive funds from Wisconsin Humanities, and many other federal grants will require this number. So it's a good thing to go and get. It's free. It's not required through us to have full registration, so you don't need to go through that full registration. You simply just need to request your UEI number. There's more information at our website about this process, and you just need a few key pieces of information about your nonprofit to request the UEI. Our grants do require matching funds. So for example, if you request the $4,000 award amount in your budget, you'll also need to show that you have $4,000 or more of matching funds. And that can be a combination of cash or in-kind effort. They include any known sources of grants or gifts, any cash or in-kind contributions, and any sources of revenue such as admission fees. Some examples of match could include a partner that has decided to donate their space for your project, and if they have a dollar value of that rental that they're donating to you, you can include that as your matching funds. It could be volunteer labor time put into the project. You just want to set a formula for that time, like $30 per hour. Or it could also be staff paid time into the planning and execution of the project. Now let's move on to eligible expenses in your budget. Eligible expenses could include honoraria for humanities personnel, the people that are providing humanities content and you're bringing into the project perhaps. It could include individual staff salaries related to project implementation. Just don't forget to include the calculations for those amounts. Eligible expenses could include per diems and travel expenses for project personnel. We have rates for mileage and things like that included in the details in our grant application packet, so make sure you download that packet of the grant application instructions. Eligible expenses could also include printing and publicity costs, facility rental, and any materials necessary for the project. You also can include a 15% indirect cost on the expense side. So if you're requesting $4,000, you could place $600 as your indirect cost. And that could be placed on either side of the budget. It could be in your matching funds or in the expense column. Some ineligible expenses include capital expenditures, which we'll cover in the next slide, expenses related to fundraising, expenses related to an archival project, regranting of WH funds, alcohol or opening reception food, book productions, gift cards, bus transportation cards, or prizes. So as defined by Wisconsin Humanities, capital expenditures are funds used to purchase equipment or materials that will have a significant working life after, your grant ends or your grant project period ends. So we don't typically fund capital expenditures. For example, this could mean the camera for filming a documentary, the lights, laptop computers. These items all have a very long-lasting shelf life. So rental of these types of items may be considered for funding if doing so makes economic sense. But ordinarily, Wisconsin Humanities would not purchase equipment costing over $500. So throughout your application, make sure you are talking about your expenditures and your matching expenditures as all being incurred after the award date. Funds cannot be awarded retroactively, so just make sure that when you're talking about activity regarding your budget and your matching expenditures that those funds are being incurred after the award date, which for this round would be after April 15th. So again, your project activities and expenses should occur after that date, after the funding decision, which is April 15th. A strong public humanities project involves the people that you know in your community that you want to bring in, that fits, the content that you want people to understand and dig into. So here's a following bullet point list of who some of these people might be and how to describe them, in your application as your humanities personnel. So you might be bringing in a tribal elder, somebody recognized by their community as a keeper of cultural knowledge, historical or place-based knowledge or practices. It could be people with a humanities degree, either a BA, MA, or PhD. You might be bringing in culture bearers, people with special expertise in the lifeways, traditions, and worldviews of a culture. It could be a person with special insight and expertise from their lived experience, or a practitioner in a humanities field. Maybe that person is a storyteller, a poet, or a local historian. Or you might be bringing in people who have worked on public humanities projects for a museum, a library, or cultural institutions. These are some words that you will come across multiple times throughout the application process, and we just wanted to have a slide that went over who these people are and what that means. So project director, this is the person responsible for directing the proposed program and submitting the final report. Fiscal agent is the person responsible for maintaining financial records of the grant expenditures and submitting our one-page financial report. This is typically a staff member in the finance or administrative area, or it could also be a board member. The project director and fiscal agent may not be the same person. The final report will be due 90 days after the end of the project, and this short report asks you to describe the impact, contributions of personnel and partners, participant stories or quotes, pictures, links to final products, and some attendance numbers. The Spring 2026 grant cycle is reviewed by members of our board using the criteria listed at our website. Our staff are not involved in funding decisions. We understand that not every project will address every criteria, and that's okay. But we want applicants to know what reviewers are looking for. So again, the criteria are listed at our website at the specific Spring 2026 Grant Cycle webpage. So a few more pieces of information. The application is submitted through our online grant portal called Foundant. There is a link at our website to this portal. You can collaborate with other writers on the application. And for future rounds, there's also a copy function just to bring over those types of factual information, over to the next round. There are character limits for each section, which you can learn more about by downloading the 2026 Spring Grant Cycle instructions. That packet of information, which really goes, deep into many details, which you should download, is also found at our website. All needed forms for the application are at our Forms and Resources page at our website. Those forms that you're going to need include the budget form, which is specific to Wisconsin Humanities, so please use our budget form. There's a link to a W-9 form, which is the most current iteration of that form, which you'll want to use, and then finally a certification form, which is a one-page form signed by a project director and the fiscal agent. So thanks again for viewing this webinar. I hope it gets you started on applying with your project, and we look forward to learning and hearing more from you.